welcome to another edition of Morning JOX. Conrad Van Order, John Saber with you today as we continued the game of musical chairs here on Morning JOX. Damian Mitchell enjoying some time off. He'll be back with me on Monday, but you'll be with me and John Saber here for the next couple of days, getting you ready for all things transfer portal, looking ahead to the college football playoff, which starts tomorrow officially. We have some college basketball to cover from last night. So a lot of things for us to get into here this morning. And we might as well start because it's a little chillier this morning. And if you remember yesterday, I was talking about how I need it to be cold around Christmas time. So I feel like I'm, really getting the full Christmas experience, and asking you shall receive, because it is kind of chilly this morning, but it is not nearly as cold as it was yesterday in North Dakota, where it was 3 degrees in Grand Forks, where Alabama traveled to go play against North Dakota, and things did not go as planned. I think if you're somebody that watched this game last night, you were probably sweating bullets a lot longer than you thought you would. I watched this game with a couple of my friends last night, one of whom is an Auburn fan, and he was certainly enjoying the game a lot more than me and my Alabama friends were last night. So if you missed the game last night, Alabama knocks off North Dakota, the Fighting Hawks, 97-90. It was an entertaining basketball game for what it was worth. I mean, it was extremely competitive, somewhat surprisingly, but it was incredibly competitive. And a big part of that is because Trayson Eaglestaff for North Dakota, all he did was have 40 points last night, 8 of 18 from the 3-point line, 15 of 30 from the floor overall last night. He was absolutely exceptional. And defensively, Alabama just really didn't have an answer for him or for a lot of things that North Dakota was doing last night. They had a great night shooting the basketball, and you have to give them props for that. They shot over 40% from deep, 43% from the floor for the game. Didn't turn the ball over a ton. But where they really ultimately kind of came back to bite them was when you look at the free throw discrepancy. Alabama didn't do great from the line. They shot 20 of 30, which is only about 66%, but they got 30 free throw attempts, whereas North Dakota only had 8. And Alabama played a really, really sloppy first half. You had 13 turnovers in the first half, but fortunately you came out in the second half and only had 1. So that was a good change to see for the Tide last night. But defensively, still just some of the problems that you've seen at times this year. It just really came back to bite Alabama. I mean, it was 62. Alabama outscored North Dakota 62-52 in the second half. That's a game for a lot of teams in college basketball. And that's what you got in just the second half of this matchup last night. And, if you're Alabama, you're just thankful that you got out of there with a win, because this would have been an ugly, ugly loss. Would have been what we call a quad 4 loss in college basketball, those are very, very bad.
Trey has only been over 30 points in his career once prior to last night.
Well, glad that he chose
found Alabama to be the one that, you know what, this is my draft tape game.
Exactly. Well, yeah, no, this is my transfer portal game right here. Is probably what it is. He's like, hey, Nate Oates, you need another 3-point shooter in Tuscaloosa next year. But no, I mean, he was absolutely incredible. And the fact that I saw that Alabama was the first power conference team to ever travel to North Dakota and play in that arena. And they certainly played like that was, their Super Bowl last night, and they put everything out there. And they gave Alabama everything that they wanted and then some. So you have to give them credit.
What was more surprising slash shocking to see? Alabama travel to North Dakota or Missouri travel to UMass in football earlier this year?
Yeah, I still think UMass, just because I just can't get over the video footage of the team getting off the bus and walking into, I don't know, what looked like a side door of your local high school, essentially, to go play a college football game. That one was shocking. I thought last night was pretty cool. There's something about basketball and having those smaller venues that
it is a cool environment.
It's different.
I guess I don't want to necessarily defend UMass, but they played multiple SEC teams before think they play Mississippi State last year, this past season as well. Played
Yeah.
Georgia here before that. They played various other teams, and I just wonder maybe if it was a 2-for-1, like a home and home. Like Missouri's like, oh, you know what? Well, we'll go up there. Maybe there's a couple recruits we're trying to get in Beantown. But I guess I can kind of see that, but I just feel like Alabama has no business in North Dakota.
I agree with that, and I think a lot of it, I mean, I would imagine that Grant Nelson had a part of it, but then at the same time, if you were gonna do that, wouldn't you just play North Dakota State, which is the school that he
Correct, right?
actually
Yeah,
attended?
yeah. He
Because
was,
he
yeah.
did not go to North Dakota, he went to North Dakota State. And yeah, I don't know, but I mean, it was a cool. I know it was cool for him because I know that he grew up not far from the North Dakota campus, and he got to have a lot of family and friends there last night. I know that was special for him. And Grant Nelson had a pretty good night. He had 23 points, 10 rebounds for a double double there. You could definitely tell early on he was trying to force it a few times, and you could tell it was like, oh well, this is my game. I'm back home. Like I got to go put on the show. And overall for Alabama last night, I just thought that they played. It felt like they played without a plan too many times, or they got caught. North Dakota kind of caught them off guard a few times where it just seemed like Alabama, they play at such a quick pace and they were just go, go, go when at times it felt like they just needed to kind of slow things down and just get a bucket and try to get things in a rhythm, especially in the first half. And they were just go, go, go. And you had, stupid turnovers. You had, alley oop opportunities that were going through people's hands. You have Mark Sears, throwing a pass into the second row of the bleachers. You have just, it felt like they just weren't on the same page for a lot of the game last night. And especially on the defensive side, it was sloppy because this is, I mean, make no mistake. I mean, yeah, credit to Eagles staff and having 40 points and having an incredible game, but Alabama was way more athletic. They were way more physical. They had a huge size advantage. If you're just watching the game and watching the players stand next to each other, you're going, North Dakota has no chance to win this game. And ultimately that Alabama needed every single inch of that advantage to be able to get the job done last night. But hey, you survive in advance, I guess. And, it's college basketball, so it's not the end of the world if you lose these kinds of games, but it certainly is a big blemish on your resume. And for a team like Alabama that's had such a good start to the season, you didn't want to drop one of these. And but it felt like, I mean, I'll be honest, it kind of felt like watching an NCAA tournament game last night, where it's just one of those games that's going to break everyone's bracket, and
Yeah.
nobody really, expects the underdog to have much of a chance. And then they go out there and guards win in the NCAA tournament, and last night that almost won for North Dakota as well. So
And looking back at what Alabama's faced in the non-conference, it almost feels like not necessarily that this should have been a letdown, but given the marquee games that they played, not only in terms of ranked teams, but in terms of logos too, coming off of UNC, a top 10 Oregon team, a Houston team, Purdue, Illinois, McNeese State with Will Wade, like playing some well-known, stiff kind of competition. It's kind of natural to feel like, okay, hey, I know we're on the road, but I can take a little bit of a letdown, maybe take a little bit of I don't have to give 100% today. I can give 85 and it's more than enough. And they definitely FO'd or FA'd and almost FO'd.
yeah, yes, that is you're absolutely right about that. It was very clear that um they kind of took the opponent for granted, I think, and like you said, maybe it's just a little bit of the nature of the stretch that you just got done with, and having such a big step down in competition, you just kind of roll the ball out there and say, "Hey, we're one of the best teams in the country. We should just be able to go out there and win and not really have to think twice about it." And that's what makes college basketball so great, is you
Yeah.
can't really do that,
Not to mention they're only their third game this month.
Well, there you go. So, yeah, a close call last night for Alabama. A little bit of a made you sweat it out a little bit last night, but Alabama does get the win over North Dakota 97-90. They move to 9-2 on the season. Coming up for the Crimson Tide on Sunday, they're going to face Kent State. That game will be on the SEC Network. And then you're going to have South Dakota State, not South Dakota, South Dakota State. They will be coming up, I guess the Sunday after Christmas, and then right after New Year's, you will kick off SEC play, as Alabama will play Oklahoma, who is currently 11-0 on the season. Very, very good start to the year for the Sooners. So Alabama will get to face Oklahoma to start off SEC play and maybe get a little revenge for the football team. But we will see about that. You also had a couple of bowl games going on last night. You had the Boca Raton Bowl. You had James Madison going up against Western Kentucky, and a Western Kentucky team that didn't have TJ Finley there on the bench to cheer on his teammates. So I know that was very difficult for them, but ultimately James Madison able to get the job done last night. How about this? James Madison 212 rushing yards last night. Western Kentucky 16. That is quite the advantage there for the Dukes in the game last night. And it was a game that Western Kentucky, James Madison got up early, and then Western Kentucky takes a 14-7 lead going into halftime. And then it was all James Madison in the second half as they outscored Western Kentucky 20-3. So James Madison and their first year without Kurt Signetti, who is now leading Indiana into the college football playoff tomorrow, they go 9-4. So a pretty good season for James Madison. Really good back-to-back years. I think we all remember what they were able to do last year, coming up and winning double-digit games, and now losing your head coach and turning around and being able to go and win your bowl game and get to 9 wins. Very impressive year yet again for James Madison. And then last night you had the Art of Sport LA Bowl, where you had a Cal team who is without their quarterback because he is in the transfer portal, going up against a UNLV team that has their quarterback, but didn't earlier in the year because he entered the portal in the middle of the season. Uh, so just some of these dynamics that you get in these bowl games when you go and kind of just think about it for a second. It's pretty ironic, but UNLV caps off a incredible season. And they are now going to get ready to kick off the Dan Mullen era as they beat Cal 24-13. So UNLV 11-3 on the season, a remarkable job that Barry Odom did with the Rebels this year, and now he's on to Purdue, and Dan Mullen comes and steps in, and I would imagine that UNLV is going to be one of those programs that is right there in the mix to be that Group of Five representative in the college football playoff for the next couple of years. So just a really nice job by that entire coaching staff with what they've been able to do at UNLV, and just have a really, really special year for that program. And hopefully Dan Mullen is able to continue that in the near future. So tonight you're going to have Georgia Southern and Sam Houston. That is going to be your Carriers Bowl, or Carriers New Orleans Bowl. That game going on tonight. You're going to get a 6 p.m. kick over on ESPN2. And then tomorrow you're going to get some early bowl action as well. You're going to have Ohio taking on Jacksonville State, who will be without Rich Rodriguez. That game is going to be your 11 a.m. bowl game tomorrow. Then you have Tulane in Florida at 2:30 tomorrow. That's a sneaky good, just a nice midday if you're off work, or you want to take a long lunch, something like that. I think that's actually a pretty compelling matchup there. Florida actually an 11-point favorite over Tulane in that game coming up tomorrow in the Gasparilla Bowl. And then, of course, tomorrow night you have Indiana and Notre Dame, the first game of the college football playoff, coming your way tomorrow night. So when we return here on Morning JOX, want to get to the latest from the transfer portal, anything that you missed involving Alabama or Auburn from yesterday. Also some notes from Kalen DeBoer as he addressed the media ahead of Alabama's appearance in the ReliaQuest Bowl coming up on New Year's Eve. So some information coming out there. And then also want to take some time to start looking at some of these college football playoff matchups. I know, we've been kind of waiting for these games to get here. They are now right around the corner, and want to get some of our thoughts on those games as well, and want to hear from you as well. 205-834-9450. That'll get you on the courtesy GMC text line. What are you looking forward to in these college football playoff matchups? Is there one particular matchup that you're the most excited for? Is there one particular matchup that maybe you just really don't even care to watch at all? Maybe you're gonna go get your Christmas shopping done when that game's on. We want to hear it all from you. We will read your text, and we will tell you the latest from the transfer portal when we return here on Morning JOX and JOX 94.5. 619, welcome back into Morning JOX. Conrad Van Order, John Saber with you here until we hand you off to McElroy and Kubelik in the morning at the 7 o'clock hour. Bringing you the latest news from the transfer portal and around the world of college football, both Alabama and Auburn. Getting a couple of pieces out of the transfer portal last night. Going to tell you about that in just a second. But first, the biggest news. I guess it's not a transfer portal piece of news technically. But we had another lawsuit that was won by a player in the world of college football, and Alabama and Auburn fans, get ready because you are now going to have to face the wrath of one Diego Pavia for another season as his waiver that he filed against the NCAA to get another year of eligibility, claiming that his year of JUCO ball shouldn't count, even though it's whatever.
Kind of always has, but okay,
I was
sure,
about
fine.
to say, I feel like junior college football is in there. So I feel like it kind of, yeah, I feel like you played, but whatever. We're in the day and age where if you're a player and you have a problem with the NCAA, you file a lawsuit and you're probably going to win. So that's exactly what Diego Pavia did. And he found out yesterday that his waiver was granted. And so he gets one extra year of eligibility. Honestly, it might be 5 extra years of eligibility. You never know at this point. But we do know for a fact that Diego Pavia will be able to come back for another year there at Vanderbilt. So very exciting for our E. Robinsons of the world. Going to be very interesting for Vanderbilt now. See if they can continue with the momentum that they built this year and have an even better season next year. And both Alabama and Auburn, yes, you have Vanderbilt on your 2025 schedules as well. So some big news there around the SEC as Diego Pavia will be coming back for another year to haunt Alabama and Auburn fans here around the SEC.
Do you think this will start a trend, or do you think this was just a one-off? Or
Of players suing about their eligibility
Yeah.
or trying to, I think it's a situation where I don't know if I'm going to say it's going to start a trend, but I think we just live in a world where if you're a player that's in a situation like that, you have pretty much nothing to lose by filing one of these lawsuits
Yeah, that's
because
true,
you
yeah.
have about a 99% chance of winning, it seems like. So, and I mean, maybe it does. Maybe this is proof for other guys that are like, oh, maybe I hadn't even thought about trying to go that route. And now it seems like that's an option for me because that's just what we need is another year of confusion of how many years of eligibility. That's like the hardest question to answer, I think, at this point, is whenever you talk about a certain player and somebody asks you, so how many years of eligibility do they have up? I couldn't tell you. Anywhere from 2 to 7, essentially. So it's just kind of one of those tricky things to figure out in the world of college football in today's day and age. But it is what it is. But we do have news actually from the transfer portal involving both Alabama and Auburn. So we will start with Auburn because they have been on a bender here in the transfer portal. Hugh Freeze doing a really nice job getting talent out of the transfer portal, whether it's on the offensive line, getting a pair of quarterbacks out of the transfer portal. Still hearing some good things about Eric Singleton, the wide receiver from Georgia Tech. I know he visited with Ole Miss, and so it was, one of those back and forth things where it looked like he was going to be solid to Auburn. Then he visits Ole Miss, and then we're leaning more Ole Miss. And now yesterday, when Ole Miss picks up Caleb Odom, the wide receiver transfer from Alabama, yeah, that's fun for Alabama fans. Then it looks like now Auburn's trending back for Eric Singleton. So hopefully we'll get an official announcement on him in the next couple of days. But Auburn's still in a good spot there. But Auburn does get former LSU linebacker Xavier Atkins out of the transfer portal. He was the guy that DJ Durkin had his eye on back at Texas A&M, and now he finally gets him to become a member of the Auburn Tigers. So a nice addition there. Some more depth on the defensive side of the ball and a guy that has SEC experience in Xavier Atkins. So a nice pickup there for the Auburn Tigers. And then Alabama getting their second player out of the transfer portal after Kelby Collins, the edge rusher from Florida, committed yesterday or the other day. Now you get Utah transfer cornerback Cam Calhoun, who committed to Alabama. He was a part of Michigan's recruiting class 2 years ago. Then he transferred to Utah this past season, had 21 tackles, 9 pass breakups, and 1 interception for Utah. He was the 4th highest ranked cornerback in the transfer portal. And I can tell you this, he does have 3 years of eligibility. That one is set in stone. So a nice piece there in the secondary, some more experience coming in for Alabama. Maybe, I don't know, maybe this is a sign that Damani Jackson is telling them that he's going to head to the NFL draft after the bowl game. I don't know. Maybe it's just a case of going and getting some extra depth there at a position that you had a lot of young players having to get opportunities and kind of step up at times this year. So another big piece there for Alabama. That is their second player that they've gotten out of the transfer portal. So they are certainly still behind Auburn and a number of other programs in that regard. But we've also heard that Isaiah Horton, the receiver from Miami, his paperwork officially went through last night, and he is now in the transfer portal and has already had a number of different recruiting experts projecting him to land at Alabama. So that would be a nice get there at the wide receiver position. Again, Casey Concepcion from North Carolina State still in the mix there as well. So we will see if over the next couple of days you get some more traction and some more movement there from Alabama out of the portal. I would expect that Auburn is going to continue to be aggressive as they have been for the last week and a half or so. So I did also mention there quickly, if you missed it, Caleb Odom from Alabama. He officially entered and went to Ole Miss. He visited Colorado, I believe, and it looked like maybe that was going to be a landing spot for Caleb Odom. But now he is part of Lane Kiffin's, a new weapon for Lane Kiffin to use there in that offense. And if you follow Lane Kiffin on social media, he was having a field day yesterday, man. He was going back through, and if you were any sort of Alabama fan page that had posted anything positive about Caleb Odom in the last year, Lane Kiffin found it and he retweeted it. He made sure to let everybody know that, hey, I just got me a dude, and I don't know what Alabama was thinking, but I'm happy to have him. And, I guess if you're Alabama, you're just glad you don't play Ole Miss in the regular season.
There's something about Petty Lane that really makes me smile. Like it's I guess it's not really ill-natured, because there's some trolls out there that are wanting to get that rise out of you, and he knows, like, and I think everyone kind of knows, like, look, it's all in fun, it's just simple little, smack talk back and forth. And I think some of it probably stems from the fact that, yeah, they won't have to face each other unless it would be in Atlanta, because I'm pretty sure, even though Papa Saban's no longer there, for Lane to kind of want to go at, but also emulate the fact that they're not having to see each other on the field allows them to, hey, you know what, it's fine. Hey, we're we're all on the same time. And especially there, you see a couple times on game day when he's been on, like when they go to him, like when he's like they call him during warmups or whatever, and he said roll tide a couple times because he knows like that's ultimately what Tide fans want. So it's a cool little kind of thing to see him whatever do that, but also, granted, this may not have been the best year of it, but he's been winning there.
Yes.
And he's been successful enough. And I think that's also maybe kind of staving off all right, do we have a white version of James Franklin here with us? Like, that's great that, he can get all these players and win those lesser games, but the big games, he ain't winning. I said he did beat Georgia, but fat lot of good that did when you lost to Florida. Well, really more so you lost to Kentucky. That just kind of left everything else. And so I don't know, maybe Ole Miss fans just feel like we're just cursed and can't really have nice things. So we're winning enough and Lane's fun. So yeah, let's just keep it rolling.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest disappointment with Lane Kiffin yesterday was honestly not his victory lap he was taking over Alabama. It was the fact that Ole Miss isn't going to be in the Netflix SEC football series. And I think that was the one guy that we were probably all the most excited to see in a, I guess like a Hard Knock style documentary series. Because, if you missed that yesterday, Netflix announced that they're going to be releasing next summer a mini series kind of on the 2024 college football season in the SEC, and a number of teams. Auburn, I believe, is going. So at first it was reported that Auburn was not going to be involved. Now it seems like Auburn is going to be one of the teams that's featured. But Ole Miss is not going to be featured. Alabama is not going to be featured. Georgia's not. Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri. I think those are the 6 that have come out and said that they will not be participating. So. But the good news is we should get Auburn, and so that should be an interesting kind of look behind the curtain of that season that we just had in 2024. But yeah, no Lane Kiffin there is going to be definitely
a bit sad.
Yes, definitely a bit sad. A couple of other pieces of portal news for Auburn. You had defensive lineman Darren Reed. He entered the transfer portal yesterday for the Auburn Tigers. And then you also had Tennessee linebacker Jalen Smith, who was on the plane yesterday visiting Auburn. So another player getting in on the defensive side of the portal or on the defensive side of the ball, and then another player potentially coming out of the portal on the defensive side of the ball and visiting Auburn. So that's just kind of the way that things go in today's day and age. Also, quickly wanted to share some of the things that Kalen DeBoer had mentioned yesterday because he did get to speak with the media kind of for the first time since he did that little impromptu press conference thing from his office after Alabama was eliminated from the college football playoff. But just some of the quotes from him yesterday. He was talking about Malachi Moore. If you missed the news, Malachi will be out for the bowl game. He was dealing with an injury all throughout the season, really, according to DeBoer, and he had surgery yesterday. If you saw his family post on social media yesterday, looked like everything went perfectly fine. The surgery went well, and he's already, out of the hospital, recovering at home. But Malachi Moore not going to play in the bowl game because he had to have surgery on an injury. Kalen DeBoer said he tried to make it work and tried to give it a go, but he just had nothing but nice things to say about Malachi Moore and his leadership and the job that he did this year playing through an injury that I think a lot of people didn't even realize that he was dealing with. And that just kind of goes to show um, what kind of a player that he is. And I know early on in the Vanderbilt game, you saw kind of the worst side of him. And I know a lot of people latched on to that for the rest of the season, but he had a fantastic career at Alabama. And so for this to be the way that he hangs it up, it's a little unfortunate, but hopefully the surgery went well and he is able to head on to the NFL and have a nice career there. You also had Kalen DeBoer, who kind of weighed in on Kelby Collins, the transfer that came in, the edge rusher from Florida, saying, quote, he's a versatile guy, just a guy that can come in and do a lot of different things. He just adds to a group that has good numbers, good competition, but he's got his kind of niche too. Outside, inside, can do a little bit of both, help add to what we want to get better at, which is getting to the quarterback in different ways. So a guy that you would imagine is going to factor into the rotation there on the defensive front for Alabama. Next year, Kalen DeBoer also spoke about the Jalen Mbakwe situation and essentially just said, hey, I had a conversation with him. He indicated to me that he wanted to come back, and we, just kind of talked it through. And he ultimately realized what he really was looking for was here at Alabama, and reiterated that Jalen is a guy that loves Alabama and loves the program and loves the community, and so he seemed to be pretty at peace with how that whole situation went down, and certainly happy to have Jalen Mbakwe stay on campus there in Tuscaloosa. He also kind of mentioned the possibility of Mbakwe playing snaps on both offense and defense, and saying that he very well may have an opportunity to do that in the bowl game because, of course, Alabama only going to have 4 wide receivers healthy for the bowl game. So that's certainly going to be something interesting to keep an eye on there as we get closer to the bowl game. And then, also just kind of sharing some thoughts on Danny Lewis, the tight end who entered the transfer portal and then came back out as well earlier this week, and how he can play a big role with both Dupree and Robbie Oots being on the way out there at the tight end position. So things looking good there for Alabama as they get ready for the next few days of practice. He said they're going to head down to Tampa Bay either the day after or 2 days after Christmas, and then be down there for a few days and get ready for the bowl game against Michigan on New Year's Eve. All right. Well, we see some of you on the phone line. Want to come see some of your texts coming in as well. 205-834-9450 if you want to chime in with what you're looking forward to this weekend. We have the college football playoff kicking off tomorrow. 1 game tomorrow, 3 games on Saturday. What game are you most looking forward to? What game are you least looking forward to? We'll get to all of that when we keep it rolling here on Morning JOX and JOX 94.5. 6:37 here on your Thursday morning. Appreciate you tuning it into Morning JOX here. Conrad and Saber with you for the next 20 minutes or so before we hand you off to McElroy and Kubik in the morning. They'll be with you from 7 to 10. Then I will be back from 10 to 2 alongside Landry Roberts and Molly Robinson for three-man front. And of course, after that, you will get the Paul Feinbaum show. So we got some good news yesterday. If you're an Auburn basketball fan involving Janai Broome, turns out that the shoulder injury is not going to require surgery and he shouldn't miss any significant amount of time. Still not totally certain about what that means for Saturday, as Auburn is going to take on Purdue in a big game, obviously. And so his availability for that game, still waiting to hear about that. But the good news is even if he's not able to go against Purdue, you would imagine that it will not be very long before you see him back on the court for Auburn basketball. So that is good news. Certainly seems to be best case scenario there. Because anytime dislocated shoulder and just it being an injury that he's already dealt with in the past, good to know that it's ultimately doesn't look like it's going to be that serious. It was a big day for athletic directors yesterday, particularly for Alabama and Auburn. So you had Greg Byrne catching some heat early in the day for a post that he made, essentially a call to action for the fan base about NIL, a very timely post after the Jalen Mbakwe situation. And I will just read you a quick excerpt from Greg Byrne's post that he made on social media yesterday. So it's a incredibly long post. I will just go ahead and tell you that if you want to go read the entire thing for yourself, you can do so. But essentially it's just talking about the landscape of NIL and how, this is a time to act. And if you want to, if you want Alabama to continue to be at the top, then, you need to, go and contribute to Yay Alabama and be a contributor and all of that stuff. But I thought this one specific part of his post was very interesting. So, quote, this is from Greg Byrne, quote, "Although we have been competitive from an NIL standpoint, our competition has us in their sights and are actively trying to surge ahead with NIL. You have heard examples of other teams using promises of million-dollar paydays to lure away our players or convince them to not come to Alabama. It is time for the Bama Nation to fight back." Nothing like a little scare tactic to get your fan base to open up the pocketbooks. So I saw quite a few people saying, are we certain that Ole Miss actually offered Jalen Mbakwe and this wasn't some information that Alabama planted out there to get people to go and donate to NIL? So that's just kind of the world we live in there. I know some people were having fun with that, but that is, that was an interesting part of Greg Byrne's post that he made yesterday, essentially calling all Alabama fans to go and donate to Yay Alabama if they could to help with NIL. And then on the Auburn side of things, you had John Cohen, the athletic director there on the Plains, who sent a email that quickly got spread around social media that got sent out to season ticket holders and essentially said, hey, things are expensive now. You like having these talented players. You like these nice recruiting classes and these transfer portal acquisitions. Well, that's great. We're going to have to raise ticket prices. Sorry. That's just the nature of the business. And, if you're somebody that was affected by that, I'd love to hear from you and find out, more details. But so if you're an Auburn season ticket holder and you haven't checked your email, you might want to do so because you may be paying more for your tickets now in the future because of NIL. And this is something that, we saw it with Tennessee early in the year, right? They're going to raise ticket prices, but then part of the ticket price goes straight to the NIL fund. And I think we're going to start seeing more of this.
I don't know if it's more, I don't want to say egregious, but just disheartening to see this happen or things like YouTube TV, like when they get those prices get jacked up, because both of them understand things are getting more expensive. So they're passing those costs on to the consumer. But like with YouTube TV, they're not giving you anything this time. When they did it a year and a half, whatever, so ago, almost 2 years or so ago, they at least discounted the price of something else. So like my bill in essence stayed the same. So I'm like, okay, I understand you got to raise price. That's how it is. But you found something else where to do this. This is more of a, we don't want to pay these players. You should do it and you're going to get benefit out of it, even though you're not really going to have direct benefit out of it. And they very well could leave after. And so yeah, please give us more money. Oh, by the way, we still need, your Tide Pride package. We need that too. I assume those prices haven't gone up, or well, I guess we'll see. Or make a better donation with that. And oh, by the way, we're going to raise prices on everything else too, but you're not going to see anything, and we're still going to have 8 conference games, and I give you maybe an extra conference game to potentially raise
Mhm.
that revenue. But okay, yeah, sure, let's pass it on the consumer, and at some point, people are just going to feel like, no, like I'm good.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that, we're now in a situation where, if you want to go attend the games, it's going to be more expensive. If you just want to sit at home and watch the games, it's going to be more expensive. It doesn't matter what you're trying to do. But there's, essentially however you want to consume your sports now, you're going to have to just pay more money to do so. And I mean, like you said, it's part of everything goes up in price, and that this is just the nature of business. And especially when, you offer a service like YouTube TV does, and all the problems that people have had with, direct TV and places like that over the years, and going back to, where every football season we have this back and
Mm-hmm.
forth where you don't know if you're going to actually have your service that you pay for and be able to watch these games. And YouTube TV has certainly found a way to take advantage of that market. And now, once they have you in there, they know that they can keep raising the prices.
Correct.
It's the same thing with, Netflix. How many times has Netflix raised their prices? I've been a subscriber for a decade, and feel like every 6 months almost my subscription is going up in
Oh, it's
price.
something else. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yep. And
Max and all these other ones, and
yep,
to their credit, ANC A-list hasn't.
that is very true. I still get Paige and I still get good value out of that one. That is still just an incredible value if you go to the movies a lot. But yeah, everything's just more expensive now. So yeah, whether you are an Auburn fan and season ticket holder and your season ticket prices went up, or your TV package is going up, whatever it is, it's just unfortunately a little more expensive now. All right, let's get to Don Don real quick. I know he wants to talk about Auburn in the transfer portal. Don Don, how are we doing this morning?
Hey guys, how are y'all? John, how you doing, buddy?
Still well. Thanks for asking.
Good, buddy. Good. Hey, yeah, Conrad, we might be getting three more today. Horatio Fields, a wide receiver from Wake Forest, and he's a big one. He's 6'4", and he's supposed to announce at 12:00. And Jeffrey Lee's put out a prediction for him. Also, too, Singleton, the kid from Georgia Tech, he's one of the top receivers in the portal. I know Concepcion. Looks like you guys are going to get him. But also, too, a kid from Tennessee, the linebacker from Tennessee, visited yesterday. And I know Constance might get mad at me for stealing him, but that's all right. And then PG's mad at Alabama and us because we're trying to get the Florida guys.
Yeah, I was about to say Alabama got one guy from Florida earlier in the week, so I know PG might be a little upset about that.
Conrad.
Yeah, he was.
Like him.
Yeah, all SEC freshman team in 2023, and yeah, and Auburn got you got a linebacker from LSU yesterday too, so pretty good day.
Yeah. One thing, I don't know if you noticed this, guys, but one thing about some of these guys got like 3 years left to play.
Yeah, they went out and found the I mean, it'll turn into 4 or 5 years quickly, I'm sure, if they file a waiver. So yeah, you can have them. You could have them for a long time, Don Don.
Yeah, how about that? Since that happened yesterday, I got a question. That means every JUCO player will be affected by that ruling, won't it?
Potentially. I mean, I think that's a situation that you could see moving forward, where guys that maybe didn't even think that was an option, now they go, oh well. I mean, and today, I mean, at this point, if you're a player and you have an idea to go against the NCAA, you might as well try it, because it's probably just going to work for you.
No kidding. And matter of fact, speaking of that, the NCAA president, he got hammered up on Capitol Hill yesterday about the the San Jose State volleyball team. I mean, just the representative or Senator Hawley just, oh, good Lord have mercy. I wish you could have seen that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's such a joke at this point. But hey,
it's bad. It's really bad, isn't it, Conrad? I mean, now they got agents going with them and everything. It's out of hand, brother. But guys, thank y'all for what you do. And what's your schedule going to be like? Y'all going to be there tomorrow and Monday, right?
Yeah, so we will be broadcasting tomorrow. Then we will be next week. We will be on air Monday and Friday, and we'll be off Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Well, yeah, you guys deserve it. Merry Christmas to all of you guys. And Conrad, buddy, thank you for our friendship, man. You're a good man.
I appreciate you, Don Don. Thank you for calling in each and every day, and just your love for Auburn, and even in the good times, the bad times. Always good to hear from Don Don and get his thoughts on what's going on with his Auburn Tigers. But we do have to get to your text messages. I know I've said we would get to them earlier in the show, but we will get to them when we come back here on Morning JOX. Keep it locked right here on JOX 94.5. 6:51 here on your Thursday morning. Welcome back into Morning JOX with Conrad and Saber. Spending a few more minutes with you here. Going to read your text in just a moment, but one more piece of transfer portal news information to get to send your way if you missed it last night. We knew this one was probably coming, especially with some movement that we had with coaching changes the last couple of weeks and just kind of the writing on the wall. But John Mateer, the transfer quarterback from Washington State, he was the number one player in the transfer portal, the number one quarterback, as his coach famously said a couple days ago before he too left Washington State and decided to go and take the job at Wake Forest. He expects that John Mateer will be the highest paid player in college football this upcoming season just because of the need that some team was going to have coming out of the portal to go and get an elite quarterback, and that was Oklahoma, was the lucky winner. Oklahoma had hired Washington State offensive coordinator Ben Arbuckle a couple of weeks ago, so it only seemed natural that John Mateer was going to transfer to Oklahoma and follow his offensive coordinator there to Norman, and so Oklahoma, in my opinion, upgrades at quarterback. I think it's just a guy that has more experience. He was one of the best quarterbacks in college football this year, and you're going to need some wide receivers there. They're going to have to get some guys healthy and bolster kind of the talent around him there in Norman. But I certainly think they're going to be in a much better spot at the quarterback position moving forward. And Oklahoma had to hold off Miami. That was the other team that was making a strong push for John Mateer.
And Washington State in the last, week or so has lost their head coach, offensive and defensive coordinator, and their starting quarterback.
Correct.
And they play in 8 days.
Correct. Rough, rough stretch there for. It's really just been a rough 2 years for Washington State. Let's be completely honest, but a good get there for Oklahoma as they get John Mateer out of the transfer portal, and we will see if that is the kind of the missing ingredient, and Oklahoma gets back to being the Oklahoma we were used to seeing in the Big 12 next year in their second year in the SEC. But got to get to the courtesy GMC text line. Your texts have been coming in throughout the show. Want to get to those quickly before we wrap things up here. Fanboy text in. He says, as a Bama fan, I want Diego back because it makes the vengeance that much better. Well, we will see. Alabama will certainly have their opportunity as he will have to come down to Tuscaloosa and Bryant-Denny Stadium next year. Let's see. Somebody texting in saying Tennessee fans are getting way too confident about their game against Ohio State. I like Ohio State to win by 2 scores or more. Yeah, Tennessee fans have been really drumming it up with the whole ticket situation. And, reportedly, I've seen people expecting 35,000 Tennessee fans to make the trip up there for the playoff game. And that would be quite a sight to see if they were able to truly get through and buy all these pre-sale tickets like it was going around on social media. If they come out in those kinds of numbers, that is going to be insane.
That would be absolutely phenomenal, and honestly kind of shame on Ohio State for letting that happen.
Oh, absolutely.
But also with that, of the 4 first-round games, it's one of the 2 that are drivable. I mean, Indiana, Notre Dame, okay, that ends up being in the same states. All right, yeah, that's doable. But SMU all the way to Penn State, that's as hard as it is to get into Penn State. Anyway, like even if you have to fly, you're gonna have to drive at some point. And going from South Carolina all the way to Austin, like that's a bit of a trek too. So you could get from Knoxville to Columbus in a few hours. So why not?
Yeah, no, I mean, it certainly makes sense, and it's certainly the game I'm most excited for in the first round of the playoffs. We have Jordan text again, says, I wish every kid in the country had the mindset that Malachi Moore does. He is the epitome of loyalty. Yeah, he's certainly been a great asset there to Alabama. Let's see, Jimmy text in, says, I watched North Dakota give Quaker Oats and the boys all they could handle. I will say this, I know an Upwards Basketball Family Life Center when I see it. Jamie from Alex City text in, says, Merry Christmas, my friends. Appreciate you, Jamie. Merry Christmas to you as well. And we have somebody chiming in saying the committee is Big Ten biased. Well, it is what it is.
Well, they would have been SEC biased had they not lost.
That is true. Well, appreciate you tuning in to Morning JOX. McElroy and Kublik in the morning.